Okay, let's unpack this. The news coming out of Indian-administered Kashmir, it's deeply concerning.
Absolutely.
We're looking at what reports are calling the deadliest attack on tourists there in, well, a quarter of a century.
Yeah, this deep dive is really centered on that, this tragic attack in Pahalgam. We're pulling mainly from the news reports coming out.
Right, the ones detailing the events, the immediate aftermath, the responses.
Exactly. And the reactions, too, both locally and internationally.
Our aim here isn't to get bogged down in every single tiny detail, but to really try and grasp what this means.
Right. What actually happened? Who was affected?
And the motivations, potentially, and of course the broader implications for, well, for Kashmir and maybe beyond.
So let's pin down the facts first. The attack happened Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025,
Okay.
at the tourist resort of Pahalgam. Now, for anyone less familiar, that's in southern Indian-administered Kashmir.
A not neg district, right?
That's the one. It's about 50 kilometers, maybe 31 miles, from Srinagar. And its local name, the Kashmiri name, is actually Valley of Shepherds.
Yeah.
Quite picturesque.
And Pahalgam was really thriving, wasn't it? I mean, peak tourist season, lots of people around.
Oh, definitely. It was bustling. Then, around 2:45 in the afternoon, this is according to witnesses, and an unnamed official,
Okay.
armed men dressed in camouflage apparently emerged from a nearby forest.
Just emerged from the woods.
Seems so. And opened fire, indiscriminate fire, at Baisaran Meadow.
Baisaran Meadow. I've heard it's beautiful up there.
It is. It's an uphill spot. You usually get there by foot or pony. And the tourists, well, they were just caught completely off guard.
You can only imagine the sheer terror. We even saw a brief account, didn't we, from a tourist named Simran Chandani.
Yes, from Maharashtra. She described Pahalgam as like a mini Switzerland. Peaceful.
And then just chaos. Fear. She mentioned something else too, didn't she?
She did. She noted that it seemed like mostly men were being targeted in the shooting.
Horrifying.
Well,
And the human cost.
Hmm.
It's just devastating.
It really is. The reports say at least 26 people killed and more than a dozen injured.
26 lives lost. And when you hear about who these people were, it just makes it so much more real somehow.
Exactly. It wasn't just numbers. We're talking about an Indian Navy officer from Haryana who was actually there on his honeymoon.
Oh, no.
And a 68-year-old former banker from Andhra Pradesh visiting with his wife.
Just terrible.
The list goes on. A realtor from Karnataka, an accountant from Odisha, a cement dealer from Uttar Pradesh,
People from all over India just there to enjoy the scenery.
and someone who'd just come back to Kerala after working in the Gulf. And tragically, it wasn't only Indians.
Right, there was a foreign national too.
Yes, one person from Nepal was also among the deceased.
So, in the aftermath, who claimed responsibility?
Well, a group calling itself the Resistance Front, or TRF, they put out a claim.
TRF. They're believed to be linked to Lashkar-Taiba, the Pakistan-based group.
That's the general understanding, yes. Though it's important, Al Jazeera, for instance, noted they couldn't independently confirm the claim's authenticity.
Okay, standard procedure. But what was interesting was the motive they stated, right?
Very interesting. The TRF statement explicitly linked this attack to the Indian government issuing residency permits to non-Kashmiris.
Ah, okay. That connects back to the changes in 2019 when the region's semi-autonomous status was revoked.
Precisely. That move, stripping Article 370, meant more direct federal control and, crucially, allowed non-locals to get these residency permits by land, things they couldn't easily do before.
So the TRF is framing this horrific attack as a response to that policy, a demographic or political shift, as they see it.
That seems to be the message they're sending. It's a significant framing, potentially signaling a shift in tactics towards targets representing, perceived Indian integration efforts.
And what are Indian officials saying? Anonymously, I gather.
Right. Anonymous sources within the Indian administration suggest they suspect 4 attackers were involved. 2 believed to be from Pakistan and 2 from Indian-administered Kashmir itself.
So, thinking about this, attacks on tourists, have they been common? My sense was they were relatively rare, though obviously the region has a long history of conflict.
You're right. Direct attacks on tourists specifically have been rarer than, say, attacks on security forces. But they're not unprecedented, sadly. Especially not in the Pahalgam area.
Really? What happened there before?
Well, back in 1995, a group called Al Faran abducted 6 foreign tourists right there in the Pahalgam area.
6? What happened to them?
It's grim. One was killed, one managed to escape, but the other 4, they were just never found, vanished.
God, that's chilling.
Then, in 2000, there was a major attack in Nonwan, which is near Pahalgam. 32 people killed. 21 of them were Hindu pilgrims on the Amarnath Yatra.
32 people, that's huge.
And just the next year, 2001, near Sheshnag Lake, also on the pilgrimage route, another attack killed 13 people, mostly pilgrims, but also a couple locals.
So pilgrims have definitely been targeted.
Yes. And more recently, too. 2017, 8 pilgrims shot in Anantnag district. And just last June, a bus carrying Hindu pilgrims was attacked, though that was in Jammu's Katua district, not Pahalgam itself.
So this latest attack, killing 26 tourists, how does it compare in scale?
It looks like the deadliest attack specifically targeting tourists since that Minwan massacre back in 2000.
That really puts it in perspective. And it's on a scale comparable to, say, the bombing outside the state legislature in 2001.
Yeah, that one killed 35. So we're talking about a very significant, very deadly event, even in the context of Kashmir's troubled history.
The immediate reactions must have been just shock. We heard from that injured tourist, Vinu Bai.
Yes, from Gujarat. Her words were quite powerful. She said something like, "We were just sitting, then gunshots. Chaos. I got hit."
And she added, "We thought Kashmir was peaceful. We did not know this would happen." That really hits home, doesn't it?
It does. It shatters that perception or hope of normalcy. And local politicians echoed that shock.
Like Iltija Mufti.
Right. She pointed out how heavily secured Pahalgam usually is, especially Baisaran Meadow. So an attack there raises serious questions about, well, how it could happen.
A security lapse, potentially? Or just very well planned by the attackers?
It's hard to say yet. But figures like Wahid or Remin Para, a Kashmiri legislator, were quick to condemn it, stressing how much this hurts Kashmiris themselves.
Especially the economy, I imagine.
Exactly. Tourism is vital, contributes nearly 7% to the GDP. He said acts like this harm Kashmiris and their livelihoods.
And the Indian government's response, it seemed pretty swift.
Very swift. Police, paramilitary troops rushed in. Home Minister Amit Shah cut short a trip, visited the region.
And Prime Minister Modi came back early from Saudi Arabia.
He did. Held high-level meetings almost immediately.
Politically, Modi condemned it strongly on social media, promised justice.
Yes, while Rahul Gandhi, from the opposition, offered condolences, but also criticized the government's claims about normalcy in Kashmir since 2019.
Right, basically saying, see, it's not as normal as you claim.
He called for accountability, pretty much. Then you have the expert analysis starting to come in.
Like Tara Kartha. What was her take?
From the Center for Land Warfare Studies. She framed it very strongly, calling it an act of war.
An act of war, wow.
Yeah, and she linked it to a recent speech by Pakistan's army chief. Her view was that only a quick, strong condemnation and promise of action from Pakistan, maybe within 48 hours, could prevent escalation.
That's a stark warning. Are there other views? Perhaps urging more caution?
Well, yeah, that's a critical point. While there's pressure for a strong response, other experts would likely caution against, impulsive military action.
Because of the risks. Escalation with Pakistan.
Exactly, a nuclear-armed neighbor, plus the risk of further alienating the local Kashmiri population. It's a tightrope.
Finding that balance between security and not inflaming things further.
It's the perennial challenge there. A perceived weak response could embolden militants, but overreaction is incredibly dangerous.
And Pakistan. Did they issue a response?
They did. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed concern, offered condolences for the deaths in Anantnag, but they also reiterated Pakistan's claim over Jammu and Kashmir, and reports suggest this response is seen in India as, well, pretty inadequate to calm things down.
Unlikely to satisfy the demands for action in India, you mean?
Probably not. And you have commentators like Saba Nafi urging caution from the Indian side.
What's her reasoning?
She points to India's relative stability compared to Pakistan's internal challenges, suggesting India should act strategically, not reactively, in a way that could make things worse for everyone.
Meanwhile, for ordinary Kashmiris, this must be devastating on so many levels.
Absolutely. First, the direct economic hit. Tourism is their lifeline.
And second, it completely undermines that narrative the Indian government has been pushing since 2019, right? The idea that things are peaceful, back to normal.
Exactly. It throws a really harsh light on how fragile that normalcy might be. Remember, even with local elections, there's been a significant crackdown, and a lot of power still rests with the federally appointed lieutenant governor.
So this attack really complicates that picture.
Deeply complicates it. But we also saw solidarity from within Kashmir.
From the tourism industry itself.
Yes. Abdul Wahid Malik, a hotelier in Pahalgam, strongly condemned the attack.
Yeah.
He basically said the human loss is what matters most right now, more than tourism.
That's a powerful statement.
And tourism and business groups even called for a shutdown and protest and mourning. People in Srinagar, like one resident, Nadia Farouk, just expressed shock and this deep desire for peace.
And internationally, lots of condemnation.
Yes, widespread. U.S. President Trump called it deeply disturbing, affirmed solidarity against terror. VP J.D. Vance was actually in India and condemned it strongly. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Russia's Putin, the UAE, the French ambassador in India, Saudi Crown Prince, MBS, during his meeting with Modi. The messages were consistent. Condemnation, condolences, solidarity against terrorism.
So a united front internationally, at least in condemning the violence.
Pretty much. And just to add another layer of difficulty, there were practical problems too.
For the tourists trying to leave.
Yeah, a landslide apparently blocked a key road, which then caused airfares to just skyrocket. Stranded people, chaos.
But locals were helping out.
Yes, people like Abdul Wahid Malik, the hotelier, were reportedly helping stranded tourists find accommodation and assistance. A small positive note in a dark situation.
So wrapping this deep dive up, we've looked at a truly brutal attack in a place with such a long, painful history of conflict.
And it throws up so many questions, doesn't it? About security, about the real motivations, about what happens next in the region.
Definitely. We've touched on the terrible human cost, the diverse people whose lives were cut short.
Just ordinary people, tourists, caught in something horrific.
And it's clear there are very different ways of looking at this attack, its causes, its implications, both inside Kashmir and around the world.
Which brings us to a final thought, really, for you, the listener, to chew on.
Given this history, this complex political reality, what are the genuine long-term prospects for peace in Kashmir? Is stability truly achievable?
And what role does something like tourism even play in that? Is it a path to normalcy or just another potential vulnerability?
Ultimately, what does an incident like this tell us about the sheer difficulty, the immense challenge of finding lasting peace in places where conflict runs so deep?